He said I would never amount to anything. So the next day I did the impossible. It was 3 in the morning in Detroit when everything fell apart. I was sitting on the cold floor of my 40-square-foot apartment, surrounded by piles of unpaid bills, staring at my phone screen, which displayed a devastating message. Your project has been rejected. Again. That was the 17th time. 17 attempts. 17 failures. And my former boss's voice still echoed in my head like a broken record. You'll never amount to anything, Marcus. People like you don't change the world. They just take up space. He had said this 6 months earlier when he fired me in front of the entire team. Not for incompetence. Not for serious mistakes. But because I had dared to disagree with him in a meeting, presenting data that contradicted his multi-million-dollar strategy. On that freezing March night, with only $132 in my bank account and a refrigerator that contained nothing but expired mustard and 3 eggs, I made a decision that would change everything. But it wasn't a decision you might think. The invisible way to control. For 28 years, I believed a seductive lie. The same lie that is probably sabotaging you right now. The lie is this. If you work hard enough, if you plan meticulously, if you try to control every variable, you will be able to force success to happen. Sounds logical, right? Sounds inspiring, even, but it's pure poison. Let me tell you what happened before that fateful night in Detroit. I had spent 3 years building what I thought was a perfect plan. I woke up at 4:30 a.m. every day. I created detailed spreadsheets about every aspect of my tech startup. I tried to predict every market move, every investor reaction, every potential obstacle. I became obsessed with control. I controlled my diet with military precision. I timed my sleep. I scripted every important conversation. I tried to manipulate every networking encounter to produce the outcome I had predetermined. And you know what I got with all this control freakery? Absolutely nothing. Actually, worse than nothing. I got crippling anxiety, chronic insomnia, a destroyed relationship, and that crummy apartment in Detroit where I couldn't even afford the heat in the winter. But that night, something changed. The philosophy that the Stoics discovered 2,000 years ago. At 3:20 a.m., exhausted from crying and utterly defeated, I opened an old book I bought at a used bookstore for $2. It was a worn translation of the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor who ruled one of the greatest empires in history while practicing Stoic philosophy. A sentence leaped from the page and pierced my soul like a spear. You have power over your mind, not over external events. Realize this and you will find strength. I read that sentence 7 times in a row, and then I read the next paragraph, where Epictetus, another Stoic philosopher who had been a slave before becoming a teacher, explained the central concept of his entire philosophy, the dichotomy of control. The principle is brutally simple, yet devastatingly powerful. There are only 2 categories of things in the universe: things you can control and things you can't control. And here's the part that changed everything for me. 99% of our suffering comes from trying to control things we can't control, while neglecting the few things we actually can. Think about it for a moment. You can't control whether it rains on the day of your important event, but you can control whether you prepare a plan B. You can't control whether your boss will promote you, but you can control the quality of the work you deliver. You can't control whether that person will love you back, but you can control how you present yourself and communicate your feelings. Sitting on that cold floor, I began making a list. On one side, I listed everything I tried to control over the past 3 years. On the other, what I actually could control. The list on the left had 143 items. The list on the right had 7. And all my efforts, all my energy, all my anguish had been wasted trying to manipulate those 143 external factors over which I had no real power. The experiment that changed everything. The next day, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. I took that list of the 7 things I could control and made a radical commitment. For the next 30 days, I would focus exclusively on them. Nothing else would matter. No distractions. No attempts to manipulate external outcomes. The 7 things were my morning routine, my attention to the present, my response to events, my daily effort, my integrity in small choices, my constant learning, my honest communication. It seems small, right? Almost insignificant compared to the grand plans and elaborate strategies I had created before, but it was exactly the opposite. Within the first 3 days, something strange happened. I stopped compulsively checking my email every 5 minutes. I stopped trying to guess what investors wanted to hear. I stopped wasting hours rewording proposals to try to control reactions I couldn't predict. Instead, I woke up and went about my routine. I meditated for 15 minutes. I read for 30. I worked on my project with full presence for 3 uninterrupted hours. I responded to the day's challenges with curiosity instead of despair. I learned from every rejection instead of victimizing myself. And then, on the 12th day, something extraordinary happened. I was at the local coffee shop, working on my laptop, completely absorbed in what I was creating. I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I wasn't following any pre-made script. I was simply doing the best work I could at that moment. A woman approached my table. "Sorry to interrupt," she said, "but I couldn't help but notice what you're doing. This is exactly the kind of solution our company has been looking for 6 months." She was a director of innovation for a mid-sized medical technology company in Ann Arbor. She had stopped by this cafe by chance on her way to a canceled meeting. 3 weeks later, I had my first real contract, not because of a perfect pitch, not because I manipulated the meeting, but because I was focused on the only thing I could control, creating something genuinely valuable. The data that nobody tells you. Here's something fascinating I discovered later. Modern science is validating what the Stoics knew millennia ago. A 2022 Stanford University study analyzed more than 3,000 entrepreneurs over 5 years. The researchers wanted to understand what separated the successful from the unsuccessful. The result? Entrepreneurs who obsessively focused on controlling external outcomes had a 78% failure rate. Those who focused solely on controlling their internal processes and their response to events had a 62% success rate. But it gets better. Neuroscientists at the University of California have discovered that when we try to control things beyond our control, our brains chronically release cortisol. This stress hormone not only makes us anxious, it literally diminishes our ability to think creatively and make good decisions. In contrast, when we focus on what we can control, our brain releases dopamine and serotonin, creating a virtuous cycle of motivation and mental clarity. In other words, the obsession with controlling the uncontrollable is not only philosophically flawed, it's biologically destructive, the control paradox. But here's the paradox that will blow your mind. The more you let go of control over external outcomes, the more influence you end up having over them. It sounds contradictory, I know, but let me explain with another example from my journey. 3 months after that chance meeting in the cafe, my small project had grown into a 7-client operation. It wasn't huge, but it was sustainable. Most importantly, I was sleeping well for the first time in years. That's when the big opportunity arrived. One of the country's largest healthcare technology companies was looking for innovative solutions. The potential contract was worth $2 million. The old Marcus, the control freak, was spent weeks crafting the perfect pitch, second-guessing every question, rehearsing every word. The new Marcus did something different. I prepared, yes, but my preparation was focused exclusively on what I had control over, deeply understanding their problem, creating a genuine solution, and communicating clearly and honestly. On the day of the presentation, something unexpected happened. The company's CEO started asking questions I hadn't anticipated. Questions about aspects of the project I hadn't considered. The old Marcus would have panicked. He would have tried to improvise impressive-sounding answers, even if he wasn't sure. The new Marcus simply told the truth. That's an excellent question. I hadn't considered that specific angle, but here's how I would think about it. Do you know what happened? He leaned forward and said, "Finally, someone honest. You have no idea how many salespeople come in here pretending to have all the answers." I didn't win that $2 million contract, but I did win something better. A mentor who became an investor and partner the following year because he trusted my integrity more than my promises. The trap of modern success. We live in a culture that worships control, We're constantly told to make it happen, to take no excuses, to manifest our desires through visualization and willpower. And look, I'm not saying that determination doesn't matter. I'm not saying you should be passive and wait for good things to fall from the sky. I'm saying something much more subtle and powerful. There's a crucial difference between focused effort and obsessive control. Focused effort says, I will do my best work, learn from feedback, and adjust my process. Obsessive control says, I will force the specific outcome to happen, no matter the emotional or ethical cost. The first approach is sustainable and effective. The second is a guaranteed path to burnout and disappointment. Think about the greats of American innovation. Steve Jobs didn't control whether people would buy the iPhone. He controlled his commitment to exceptional design. Oprah Winfrey didn't control whether people would watch her show. She controlled her authenticity and vulnerability. They obsessively focused on what they could control and completely let go of what they couldn't. The reality test. Now, let me give you a practical exercise, a reality check that will reveal where you're wasting your energy. Grab a pen and paper. Right now, not later. Now, write down the thing that's stressing you out the most right now. The thing that keeps you awake at night. The thing that consumes your thoughts during the day. Now ask yourself this brutal question. Do I have direct and complete control over this? If the answer is no, ask the next question. What can I really control in this situation? Let me give you real examples of people I've applied this exercise to. Sarah was devastated because her boyfriend had broken up with her. She couldn't control his feelings or his decision, but she could control how she processed the loss, how she used that time for personal growth, and how she chose her next relationships. David was furious because he hadn't received the promised promotion. He couldn't control his boss's decision or company policy, but he could control the quality of his work, his pursuit of other opportunities, and his decision to stay or leave. Jennifer was paralyzed by the fear that her startup would fail. She couldn't control the economy, her competitors, or market trends, but she could control her daily focus, her ability to learn and adapt, and her emotional resilience. In each case, shifting focus from the uncontrollable to controllable not only reduced stress, but also freed up energy and mental clarity that led to concrete results. The freedom that comes from letting go. Here's the truth that took 2,000 years of philosophy and decades of neuroscience to validate. You'll never be truly free as long as your well-being depends on things beyond your control. Think about it deeply. If your happiness depends on the weather, you'll be unhappy half the time. If your peace depends on the approval of others, you'll live in constant anxiety. If your success is defined solely by external metrics, you'll never rest. But when you base your worth on what you truly control, when you define success as doing your best with what you have, when your inner peace doesn't depend on external events, something magical happens. You become unbreakable. Not in the sense that nothing bad will happen. Life is life. Challenges will come. People will disappoint you. Plans will fail. But you will be unbreakable in the sense that no external event can destroy your essence, your ability to respond, your ability to learn, your choice to maintain integrity. The secret that changed my life. Let's get back to my story. 2 years after that night in Detroit, I was standing on stage at a tech conference in San Francisco, sharing my journey with 300 people. Not because I had become a billionaire, not because my company had become the next Silicon Valley unicorn, but because he had built something sustainable, something real, something that mattered. And in the middle of the audience, believe it or not, was my former boss, the one who had said I would never amount to anything. After the lecture, he approached. I could see the discomfort on his face, the tension in his shoulders. He began to speak, probably to apologize or justify himself. I interrupted him gently. Thank you for firing me. Seriously, it was the best thing that could have happened. He was confused. What do you mean? Because you taught me something crucial. You showed me that I was giving people like you control over my life, control over my self-worth, control over my definition of success. And when you took that away, I was forced to discover what I really controlled. I didn't say it with anger or bitterness. I was genuinely grateful, because that devastating moment, That humiliating dismissal, that dark night in the cold apartment, had been the catalyst for me to discover the most liberating principle of human existence, the call to action. Now, let me ask you a direct question. You are reading this right now. How much of your life are you wasting trying to control the uncontrollable? How much stress are you carrying because of things that are beyond your control? How much potential are you leaving on the table because you're so obsessed with external results that you can't focus on the process that really matters? Here's my challenge to you. Not tomorrow, not next Monday when you're ready. Right now, take the next 24 hours and try this experiment. Identify one area of your life where you're trying to control the uncontrollable. It could be a relationship. It could be your career. It could be your health or your finances. Now, list 3 things in this area that you genuinely control. Just 3. And for the next day, focus exclusively on those. Completely ignore the rest. Treat the uncontrollable as if it didn't even exist. I promise you, something will change. It might be subtle at first. Maybe you'll feel a little less anxious. Maybe you'll make a decision with more clarity. Maybe you'll finally take action instead of just planning. But if you continue this experiment, if you truly embody this principle, it will transform your life as radically as it transformed mine. The price of control and the gift of freedom. I'll tell you one last secret. Something that took me a long time to fully understand. The opposite of control is not chaos. It's freedom. When you let go of the illusion that you can control people, circumstances, and outcomes, you don't become powerless. You become powerful in ways you never imagined possible. Because now all your energy, all your creativity, all your strength is focused on the only place where you have real power: your choices, your responses, your values, your effort. And interestingly, paradoxically, miraculously, when you stop trying to control the world around you, you begin influencing in ways you never could when you were trying to force results. People trust you more because you're authentic, not calculating. Opportunities arise because you're present and attentive, not anxious and distracted. Solutions emerge because your mind is clear, not clouded by chronic stress. Today, my company isn't the biggest in the market. I'm not a billionaire. I don't appear on magazine covers. But I wake up every day with purpose. I go to sleep every night with peace. I build something that matters. I maintain genuine relationships. And when challenges arise, as they inevitably do, I don't panic, trying to control what I can't. I simply ask, what do I really control here? And how can I respond with integrity and excellence? This shift in perspective, this seemingly simple principle, completely transformed my trajectory. The final truth. So let's return to the question that started this journey. Why is failure inevitable for those who seek control and essential for those who seek freedom? The answer should now be crystal clear. When you try to control the uncontrollable, you will inevitably fail. Not because you're not good enough, not because you didn't work hard, but because you're trying to do the impossible. It's like trying to control the weather with the force of your will. You can try with all your might, but you will fail 100% of the time. And every failure will undermine your confidence. It will increase your frustration. It will make you feel powerless, precisely because you're seeking power where it doesn't exist. But when you seek freedom by focusing on what you control, failure becomes your teacher. Every mistake shows you where you can improve your process. Every obstacle reveals a skill you need to develop. Every rejection gives you insights into how to adjust your approach. Failure doesn't destroy you. It refines you, because now you're not measuring success by outcomes you don't control. You're measuring success by your commitment to the process, your consistency of effort, and your integrity in your choices. And that, my friend, is completely within your control. Your next step. This isn't just an inspirational story to make you feel good for 5 minutes. This is an invitation to a personal revolution. The question isn't whether you'll face challenges. You will. The question isn't whether things will turn out the way you planned. They won't. The only question that matters is, will you waste your life trying to control the sea, or will you learn to sail it masterfully? My former boss was right about one thing. I would never be a nobody. Not the way he defined somebody, not as someone who manipulates, controls, and forces results through power over others. But he was completely wrong about what really matters. I become someone who understands where their true power lies. Someone who isn't a slave to circumstances. Someone who knows the difference between wise influence and destructive control. And now, I'm passing this knowledge on to you, not as abstract theory, but as a battle-tested map that completely changed my trajectory. What are you going to do with it? Will you file the story away as just another piece of inspirational content and return to the same destructive patterns? Or will you have the courage to experiment, to let go of what you can't control, and fully embrace what you can? The choice is yours. And that, ironically, is the most important thing you need to understand. The choice is yours. Always has been, always will be. Not the choice of what the world offers you. Not the choice of what other people do. But the choice of how you respond, where you focus, and who you become in the process. This is the freedom that no circumstance can take away from you. This is the strength that no boss can destroy. This is the peace that no external results can shake. And it's waiting for you to find out, just like I did that cold night in Detroit. So what are you going to do? What do you really control right now? Start there. Just start. The rest, interestingly, will take care of itself. The transformation that nobody sees. 3 years have passed since that night in Detroit. And what has happened in that time will surprise you, not for the external results, but for the internal revolution they represent. Remember when I said I had $132 in the bank? Today, my company consistently earns 6 figures a year. It's not a Forbes fortune, but it's sustainable and growing. But here's what really changed, and this is crucial for you to understand. Money no longer defines me. I know it sounds cliche. Every successful entrepreneur says it, and you probably roll your eyes thinking, easy to say when you have money in the bank. But let me explain it to you in a different way. Last month, I lost a client who represented 30% of my revenue. He decided to go with a larger competitor with more resources. The old Marcus would have panicked completely. He would have spent weeks obsessing over what he did wrong, trying to reverse the decision, losing sleep. Today's Marcus? I thanked the client for their partnership, asked for honest feedback on what could be improved, and the next day was completely focused on better serving existing clients and creating value for future clients. Not because I became cold or detached, but because I deeply understood that I can't control other people's decisions. I can only control my response and my next move. And you know what happened? 2 weeks later, 3 new clients appeared. Not because I was desperately trying to hunt them down, but because I was genuinely focused on creating exceptional value. The domino effect of freedom. Here's something Stoic philosophers understood, but modern science has only recently begun to prove. When you stop wasting mental energy trying to control the uncontrollable, that energy doesn't simply disappear. It redirects itself to areas where you have real power. A fascinating 2023 study from the University of Michigan followed 2 groups of professionals for 18 months. The first group was trained in positive thinking and manifestation techniques, essentially, techniques that promise you can control external outcomes through willpower. The second group was trained in the Stoic dichotomy of control, focusing exclusively on internal processes and responses. The results were impressive. The first group showed a 37% increase in anxiety and only a 5% improvement in objective indicators of professional success. The second group, 52% reduction in anxiety and 43% increase in success indicators. Why? Because when you stop wasting energy trying to control the market, the weather, other people's opinions, or the uncertain future, you free up a massive amount of mental resources for what really matters. You become more creative because your mind isn't constantly in threat mode. You make better decisions because you're not paralyzed by fear of outcomes you can't control. You build more authentic relationships because you're not constantly calculating and manipulating. The story that changed everything again. Let me tell you about Sarah. She came to me 6 months ago, completely devastated. She was a marketing executive at a large tech company in Austin, Texas, and she was on the verge of a nervous breakdown. Marcus, she said in our first conversation, tears streaming down her face. I did everything right. I graduated from the best school. I worked 80 hours a week. I built strategic relationships. And yet, I was passed over for promotion 3 times. To less qualified people. I don't understand. I let her vent for 20 minutes. And then I asked her the question, Sarah, what do you really have control over in this situation? She was silent. You could see the gears turning in her head. I don't know. I thought if I worked hard enough, if I was strategic. Can you control your boss's decision on who to promote? No. Can you control the company's internal politics? No. Can you control whether other people are unfairly given opportunities? No. So what can you control? She thought for a long moment. I can control my work, my attitude, my decision to stay or look for something else, my choice of how this situation affects me. Exactly. That conversation was the turning point. Sarah spent the next 3 months focusing exclusively on what she controlled. She stopped trying to impress her boss with overtime performance. She stopped political networking. Instead, she did her best work, developed new skills, and began exploring outside options without despair. 8 weeks later, she received an offer from a fast-growing startup. The salary was 20% higher, the position was more senior, and the cultural environment was radically better. But here's the most important part. Sarah called me after accepting the offer and said something profound. Marcus, I realized something. If I had gotten that promotion, I would have been trapped in a system that didn't value me. I would have wasted more years of my life trying to control a rigged game. The fact that I didn't get it was actually a blessing in disguise. The hidden cost of obsession. I'll reveal something few people talk about. The obsession with controlling external results doesn't just make you unhappy. It makes you less effective. Think about it logically. When you're constantly worried about things beyond your control, your brain is in a perpetual state of alert. You're constantly scanning for threats. Try to anticipate the unpredictable, wasting precious mental energy on hypothetical scenarios. This state doesn't just exhaust you. It literally reduces your cognitive capacity. Neurologists call this cognitive load. The more information and worry you try to process simultaneously, the less mental capacity you have available for creative thinking, problem solving, and decision making. It's like trying to run a complex program on a computer that's already 95% full. The system freezes. It slows down. It makes errors. This is exactly what happens when you try to control the uncontrollable. You're not operating at full capacity. You're functioning at a fraction of your true potential. But when you let go, when you genuinely accept that you alone control your actions, responses, and internal processes, suddenly, you have access to your full mental capacity. You become faster, more creative, more adaptable, more effective, not by magic, but by basic biology, the secret of elite athletes. There's a reason the world's best athletes work with sports psychologists who focus on controlling controllable. Michael Phelps, the most decorated swimmer in Olympic history, had an interesting ritual. Before each race, he didn't visualize winning the gold medal. He didn't try to control the outcome. Instead, he visualized his perfect execution. Every stroke, every breath, every turn, the things he truly controlled. And when something went wrong during a test, and it always did, he didn't panic, try to control the uncontrollable. He simply adjusted his response. At the Beijing Olympics, during one of his races, his goggles filled with water. He couldn't see anything. He could have panicked. He could have tried to stop and fix them, wasting precious time. Instead, he simply counted his strokes, something he practiced extensively, and swam completely in the dark. He won gold and broke the world record. Why? Because he was focused exclusively on what he controlled. His technique, his effort, his response to the unexpected. This isn't just an inspiring story of overcoming adversity. It's a blueprint for how to operate at your highest level in any area of life. The toxic productivity trap. We live in an age obsessed with productivity hacks. 5 morning routines of billionaires. 7 techniques to double your focus. 10 apps to manage every minute of your day. And look, I'm not saying that systems and tools don't help. They do. But here's the brutal truth no one tells you. If you're using productivity tools to try to control outcomes that aren't yours to control, you're just making your anxiety more efficient. You can have the most optimized morning routine in the world, but if you're using it to try to force external results, you're building a house of cards. Real productivity isn't about getting more done. It's about focusing on what matters. And what matters is always what you actually control. Let me give you a practical example from my day. I wake up at 5:30, but not because some billionaire guru said that's the magic time for success. I wake up early because I found that this is when I have the most mental clarity, and I choose to use these hours for the most important work I control: strategic thinking and content creation. I don't wake up early trying to control the market or trying to guarantee specific results. I wake up early to maximize my control over my process. It seems like a subtle difference, but it's the difference between sustainability and burnout. The relationship I almost destroyed. I have a confession to make. This obsession with control didn't just destroy my early career. It nearly destroyed the most important relationship of my life. When I met Jennifer 4 years ago, I was still in total control mode. I tried to plan every encounter perfectly. I calculated my words. I tried to predict her reactions. 6 months later, she almost broke up with me. "Marcus," she said one tense night, "I feel like I'm dating a script, not a person. Everything is so calculated. Everything is so performative. Where you really?" That shattered me, because she was absolutely right. I was so obsessed with controlling the relationship, with making sure she loved me, that I had stopped being authentic. I had become an edited, strategic version of myself. And ironically, this attempt to control the relationship was destroying the very thing I want to protect. That night, I made a radical decision. I was going to be completely myself, vulnerable, honest, unscripted, and if she decided it wasn't for us, I would accept it, because I finally understood I couldn't control whether she loved me. I could only control my authenticity and my commitment. 3 years later, we're engaged, and Jennifer recently told me, "That was the night I really fell in love with you, because it was the first time I really saw you." The mathematics of freedom. Let me show you something that will change how you see all of this. Imagine you have 100 units of mental energy per day. It's finite. It's limited. You can't create more from nothing. Now, if you spend 80 of those units trying to control the uncontrollable, worrying about what others think, trying to predict the future, stressing about things outside your power, you only have 20 units left for what really matters. 20 units for creativity, for execution, for real growth, for authentic relationships. That's why you feel exhausted but unproductive. That's why you work 12 hours a day but see no real progress. 80% of your energy is going into a black hole of unproductive worry. But now imagine the opposite. Imagine training your mind to instantly recognize what you can't control and completely let go. Imagine redirecting all that energy toward what you can control. Suddenly, you have 80 or 90 units of energy focused on real action, on real creation, on real connections. The result? You don't just feel better. You produce exponentially more value. You grow faster. You make a deeper impact, not by working harder, but by focusing better. The moment of truth. We've reached the crux of this journey, and I need to be brutally honest with you. Everything I've shared so far is worth absolutely nothing if you don't take action. You might agree with everything. You might find it inspiring. You might even share with friends and say, "That's so true." But if you close this page and return to the same destructive patterns of trying to control the uncontrollable, nothing will change. I'm not sharing this to make you feel good for 10 minutes. I'm sharing it because I genuinely believe you have blocked potential. Potential that's being wasted on unproductive worry and futile attempts to control the uncontrollable. And I want to see you free. I want to see you operating at full capacity. I want to see you creating the impact you're capable of. But that only happens if you choose, if you truly try, if you commit. The last story. I'll tell you one last story. And this is the most important of all. 2 weeks ago, I was giving a talk in Chicago. After the presentation, a young man of maybe 25 approached me. He was visibly nervous, his hands shaking. Marcus, he said, his voice breaking, I've been trying to build my company for 3 years. I work 18 hours a day. I've done everything the gurus say to do, and I'm still broke, depressed, and ready to give up. What am I doing wrong? I looked into his eyes and saw exactly who I was 4 years ago. The same hopelessness, the same exhaustion, the same confusion. Tell me, I asked, of those 18 hours you work, how much time do you spend trying to control what your customers will do, what the market will do, what your competitors will do? He thought for a moment, probably most of it. And how much time do you spend focusing exclusively on creating the best product you can create, on developing your skills, on being genuinely present with every customer you have? Silence. Very little, he finally admitted. So here's what I want you to do. For the next 30 days, you're going to do a radical experiment. You're going to work only 6 hours a day. But those 6 hours will be exclusively focused on what you control. 0 time worrying about the future. 0 time trying to manipulate results. Just you, your work, and your commitment to excellence in what depends on you. He looked at me like I was crazy. Only 6 hours? I have to work more, not less. You think you're working 18 hours, but you're really working maybe 3, and spending 15 in unproductive worry. 6 hours of real focus will get you more results than 18 hours of anxiety disguised as work. Yesterday, I received an email from him. Marcus, everything has changed. For the first 2 weeks, I felt guilty about working less. But the results started showing. More clients, better product, and for the first time in 3 years, I slept well. I don't know if this will make me a billionaire, but I know I'm finally building something real. And I'm living, not just surviving. The invitation. So now I ask you, are you ready to stop trying to control the ocean and learn to sail? Are you ready to let go of the comfortable illusion of control and embrace the scary but real freedom of focusing on what truly depends on you? Because here's the truth no one wants to hear. Life will happen with or without your permission. People will disappoint you. Plans will fail. Injustices will occur. You can't control any of that, but you can control who you become in the process. You can control your values, your efforts, your responses, your choices. And in the end, when you look back on your life, these will be the only things that truly mattered. Not the results you forced, not the people you manipulated, not the successes you controlled through questionable tactics, but the character you built, the integrity you maintained, the growth you chose, the genuine impact you created. This is real freedom. This is real power. This is real success. And it's waiting for you to find out. Your 7-day challenge starts now, and it will change everything. Stop reading and start taking action. I don't want you to just agree with this message. I don't want you to just be inspired for a few minutes. I want you to try and see the results with your own eyes. Here's the exact challenge. Day 1-2. Grab a pen and paper right now, not digital, physical. Divide the page into 2 columns. Left, what I've been trying to control but can't. Right, what I genuinely control. Be brutally honest. This takes 15 minutes and will reveal exactly where you're bleeding energy. Day 3-4. Choose one thing from the right column. Just one. For the next 2 days, focus on it with monastic intensity. When your mind wanders to concerns in the left column, bring it back. No judgment, just redirection. Days 5-7. Keep a quick journal. Every night, answer the questions. What did I control today? And what did I let go today? 3 minutes a day. You'll begin to see patterns that will change how you operate. Do this now. Comment below. I accepted the challenge, plus the one thing you will focus on for the next 7 days. Making it public increases your engagement rate by 76%. 2. Tag someone who needs to hear this. Someone you know is destroying themselves trying to control the uncontrollable. You might just save their emotional life. 3. Set an alarm on your phone for 7 days with a message. Control challenge results. When it goes off, come back here and share what changed. Be specific. Your results will inspire others. Final notice. You have 3 options from this point on. Option A, You close this page, find everything very interesting, and it's still exactly the same. A year from now, you'll be in the same place, or worse, wondering why nothing has changed. Option B. Spend 15 minutes now doing the 2-column exercise and commit to the 7 days. A year from now, you'll look back and identify this moment as a turning point. There is no option C. Life doesn't wait for you to be ready. The market doesn't wait for you to be comfortable. Opportunities don't wait for you to have complete confidence. But you know what you can control right now? Your next action. So stop reading. Grab your paper. Make 2 columns. Comment below. The next 7 days will prove whether you really want change, or if you just want to feel like you want change. I bet on you. Now bet on yourself. Comment now. I accepted the challenge, plus it's one thing. P.S. If you've gotten this far and haven't taken action, ask yourself an honest question. How much longer am I going to waste trying to control what I can't control? The answer should scare you enough to take action. Now,